Hey everyone, welcome to the show. The United States just settled a class action lawsuit over one of the most egregious things that Donald Trump did during his time in office, that family separation policy. Roughly 5,500 children were taken, and babies were taken from their parents as they crossed the border into the US from Mexico. Many were never reunited with their parents because the Trump administration just didn't bother to keep any records connecting the children to the parents. And many of the parents were deported without their children. So the ACLU estimates that somewhere between 500 and 1,000 children are still lost. This is after 5 years. And to make matters worse, some children were placed with foster families, and we're now finding out that many of the children that were placed with foster families were U.S. citizens. The kids were born in the United States, and then the parents took them back to their home country for whatever reason, and then they tried to re-enter the U.S. during the Trump administration. The New York Times recently reported that of the approximate 5,500 children and babies who were separated from their parents, up to 1,000 were born in the United States. And in the many years since this atrocity took place, some of these children were even adopted by other families without any way to track them. They literally could be in the hands of child sex traffickers and abusers right now. We have no idea. The issue is the inconsistent record keeping by various states and different agencies. Reports say that the government, for instance, knows of 226 US-born children who were sent to San Diego, California, to a Child Protective Services agency. Those children were tracked. However, there are no records that exist for children who were sent into foster care in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. According to immigration attorneys, non-US children were more readily reunited with their parents because their children remained in immigration facilities. And so there were records that were kept of the children and of the adults at their respective facilities. But this story gets even more twisted because there's written evidence showing that Trump's immigration officials were upset that the families were being reunited so quickly. Because some of them were. In June of 2022, the Washington Post reported on emails that the Biden administration turned over to attorneys. This was part of the discovery process for this class action lawsuit. One email was written in May of 2018 by a man named Matthew Albence. At the time, he was a high-ranking immigration and customs enforcement official. And he said that they needed to try to prevent reunification. This was because, based on the way that minor offenses like border crossings are handled by the US, Albence was very upset that these parents were going to get to see their children again so soon. He wrote, quote, "This will result in a situation in which the parents are back in the exact same facility as their children, possibly in a matter of hours, who have yet to be placed into ORR custody." So he's complaining about this. And then Albence suggested that they take action to, quote, "prevent this from happening." And then when another ICE official named Tay Johnson emailed to warn that the Office of Refugee Resettlement, that's the ORR, was refusing to transport children to other facilities after their parents had been released from custody, Albence wrote, quote, "We can't have this." So in other words, their parents were being processed by the courts because it was just a misdemeanor. In a lot of cases, they would plead guilty. They would say, yes, I plead guilty to trying to cross the border illegally. They would get a slap on the wrist. They would be given like time served for the amount of hours that they had already spent in custody, and they would be released. And so they would be sent back to the facility where their children were. These guys wanted the kids to be taken to a completely different facility so that the parents could not see them. And then another ICE official named David Jennings concurred, and he wrote back, quote, No consequence at this point. ORR needs arm twisted. These people are psychos. They are sick. The following day, Albans emailed a Customs and Border Patrol commissioner, and he complained, quote, "This obviously undermines the entire effort, and the department is going to look completely ridiculous if we go through the effort of prosecuting only to send them to an FRC, Family Residential Center, and out the door. These people will all burn in hell, and they 100% deserve it." These are sick, deranged people. This is so evil. I'm telling you. I mean, you have to be sadistic to want this for a child. Anyway, as I mentioned in the beginning, the U.S. has agreed to give these families a settlement. They've agreed to very unique benefits as compensation for what the Trump administration did to them. The Biden administration wanted to give them financial compensation, but Republicans freaked out about it, so they scrapped that idea. So the Biden administration has agreed to grant them a special process to seek asylum. So they won't have to go to court. They won't have to plead their case before a Justice Department immigration judge. And if they're approved, they'll be given permanent legal status in the United States. The families will also have access to government-funded housing benefits, also legal counsel, and medical and mental health services. In addition, this agreement addresses this horrific policy and its use in the future. The U.S. government, under this agreement, would be prohibited from separating any children from their parents unless the parent is abusive or unless they have a serious criminal record. Still, some families are seeking monetary compensation. They've filed individual lawsuits, so we'll see what happens with their cases. But this was one of the most sick and twisted things that Republicans did under the Trump administration. It is one reason why I could never in a million years, even if you paid me $1 billion, would never cast a vote for anyone in that party ever again. They stood by and did nothing. They watched as Trump and his people tormented these families. They caused lifelong trauma, so much suffering, children who will never, ever see their parents again, all because millions of people in this country decided that it was not a big deal to elect a racist sociopath. And Republican lawmakers are too cowardly to stand up to him and his cult. So I will let you all know when I hear more on this. I've been tracking this story for several years now. It is so disturbing to me. Oh, what I would do. I'll just leave it at that. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.